Testing. All right, let's try it again.
Ready?
Yep. All right, try it again with sound. Each week when we do these, there are times where we've done them in the past and we've had technical difficulties, and the issue each time is a little bit different. And what we're doing is with each one of these, it's a learning experience, frankly. And each time, you make mistakes here and there, and hopefully what you do is you work out the kinks, because we have a number of special guests lined up in coming weeks, and we want to make sure and work out those kinks before we have a special guest. And so that's what we're doing, and I apologize for some of these technical difficulties, but we're working out those kinks and making sure that it's a good live stream experience. And I want to add that when elected, one of the things that I plan on doing is having regular live streams from the state capitol, because I think it's important that in this present day and age, with the technology that we have, that our state representatives, our office holders, communicate with the people that have sent them to Austin to represent their interests, and to communicate what's going on every day, so that way our people who've elected our representatives know that our representatives are spending their time wisely and spending their time on the people's behalf, and not for things that the people wouldn't approve of. And so I do plan on utilizing same type of situation. We might alter it some, but I do plan on utilizing live stream technology and video technology from Austin to communicate with people back in Lubbock. All right, so now let's go back to our first question. What do you think is the number one barrier to change in Lubbock? So, as far as that question goes, like I said before, Lubbock's an interesting place. You would think that this being a college town, it would be a more progressive town than the surrounding areas. Kind of like what you see in Ann Arbor, Michigan, or South Bend, Indiana, where you have major universities that are centers for progressivism, even though they're in more rural areas. However, the problem that we have here in Lubbock, or what makes Lubbock different from those places, is Lubbock, number one, it's a totally agrarian-based economy. I mean, we have Texas Tech, we have healthcare, we have public education, but really there's no major industry here. And so, when you look at the cultural history of Lubbock, it's an agrarian economy. It's based upon the seasons. It's an economy, or it's a town where you drive down the street, all the streets are straight. They're on a grid. It's a place that, I hope this doesn't offend anybody, but it's a place that kind of encourages a level of complacency. It's a place that kind of discourages creativity to a sense, and that's kind of weird to say when we are the home of so many great artists. But when you look at just the whole population in general, I think it's a place that really encourages people to just kind of stay in their lane. It's a place that doesn't foster that creativity that you might have in a place where, for instance, I'm from Houston. I left Houston after college, but all the way up through college, Houston's a place where you might have a skyscraper on one block and it's next to a house, because there's no zoning in Houston. And it's just a different environment entirely. And so as far as Lubbock goes, like I said, it's a place that sort of encourages people to be complacent. It's a place that a lot of people, if they come to Lubbock, they're coming here because they like Lubbock. And if they've grown up here, they're wanting to do one of two things. Either they want to leave to go to like Dallas or Houston or Austin, they want to go to a bigger city, or else there's somebody who's made it here and they want to stay. Or the third option is there's somebody that can't leave. And so you have a large number of people that are here because they either like it here, because they moved here, or else they've grown up here and like it here, and they don't want it to change. And so Lubbock's a place where people don't want to see change happen. And just sort of by definition, progressive is some change. And also because the population is so old. And I say that old is a relative term. I'm old. But because the population tends to trend older than other cities, it's also a place that is resistant to change. It's a place where people really, they're comfortable here. And that's good. There's a lot of good stuff about that. But it also means that if we're going to be able to foster change, if we're going to be able to foster creative solutions to some of our problems, what we've got to do is we've got to get more young people engaged and excited. We've got to get more young people understanding that they have a voice. And by young people, I mean people younger than me. I mean people in their 30s, people in their early 40s. We need people who feel like they have a part and have a voice in our community. And I don't think we've had that in the past. I think in the past, what we've seen here is a community that believes that bankers and real estate developers kind of run the show. And it's up to us to show that that's not the case. And so I would say that's probably the greatest barrier to change is just our inability so far, but I think it's changing, our inability so far to activate younger people. So our second question, how do you feel about zoning or rezoning, and how can that be fixed or worked around? Well, I just got through talking about Houston, and they're an example of zoning, or the lack of zoning run amok. Like I said, you'll have a skyscraper next door to somebody's house. You have refineries next to people's houses. And it's no accident that I've got an aunt and an uncle who have both had cancer in their lives, and they both lived on the Houston Ship Channel. And so, we've got to be able to address those things here in our community. We have places here in our community where we may not have the big refineries and that type of industry, but we have places here in our community where people are being exposed to carcinogens that are dangerous, and it's destroying communities, and we need to address that. Now the question goes to zoning. The problem with the question is that zoning is not really a state issue, and a state representative is dealing with issues from the state government, and so we're talking about the Texas Commission for Environmental Quality, those types of things. And one of the things you can do there is you can put some teeth into our environmental laws, and you can properly fund the TCEQ so that your inspectors are going out and doing their job. I don't think we've had much of that in the past. Every week I drive to Odessa. I've got an office in Odessa, and every single week I'm seeing flaring going on that I know that flaring isn't being properly regulated by the TCEQ, and we got to do a better job of those kinds of things. But in terms of zoning here locally, that would be more of a local issue, a city issue. But another thing the state can do is the state can offer tax incentive zones. They can create tax incentive zones in distressed communities or communities that need the assistance, so that you can offer certain financial incentives to people of color, to businesses to go in and revitalize communities. And I think we haven't done much of that, but we can certainly do more. I would like to see more done with the governor's slush fund, if you will, his enterprise, this fund that he has for creating business. I would like to see more strictures put on that, so that there are requirements that money be spent, or money be given priority to be spent on minority businesses and doing things to improve our inner cities, especially of course here in Lubbock. And you can also have minority empowerment loans. That's one of the things I talked about in one of our previous live streams, where we have a real problem in that minorities can't get the loans that they need in order to to create new businesses and to really have the nice kind of businesses that can compete with some of the businesses like what we see here in Southwest Lubbock and those kinds of things. And so, I'll give a shout out to the owner of Wiley's Barbecue, one of the best barbecue places in town. But I've talked to him and asked him, hey, when are you going to expand? When are you going to go and build new restaurants and stuff? I don't think that they can get the kind of capital that other places in our suburbs can get, and we need to fix that. All right, so our next question: does Lubbock have an independent review board for police officer misconduct complaints, and if not, how can we go about in establishing one? So when it comes to the a police review board, again, that's more of a city type issue, but one thing that we need to focus on and we need to pay really, really close attention to is the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement, TCOL it's called. So Texas has 1/11 the population of the United States, but Texas has 1/6 the number of law enforcement officers. That does not make sense. There are more homicides per capita in Texas than there are in California or in New York or several other states. And clearly, more law enforcement officers in Texas is not fixing our problem when it comes to crime and homicides, dangerous crimes, those types of things. So something's out of whack. Other states seem to be doing things better. So what are they doing better? Well, for one thing, 2/3 of the states have a system in place where they have a state level review board that can review police misconduct, and they can revoke a law enforcement officer's license for conduct that is egregious conduct, but doesn't have to rise to the level of a felony offense. So in other words, what I'm saying is in Texas, in order for a law enforcement officer to lose his or her law enforcement license, that law enforcement officer has to commit some type of misconduct that rises to the level of a felony offense. Well, not too many law enforcement officers get tried and convicted of felonies. It's extremely rare. So we've got to do something there. We've got to go and give TCOL the enforcement mechanism to go in and conduct reviews of police officer misconduct and to be able to to evaluate that misconduct and grade that misconduct, and if appropriate and if necessary, to take away that law enforcement officer's license. I'm a lawyer. There is a state bar of Texas that reviews and oversees our legal system, or at least the lawyers in our legal system. Doctors have the Texas Medical Board. There are a number of different professions that have review boards that will go and have oversight when it comes to people's licenses. And Texas has that in TCOL, but unfortunately TCOL, as it sits right now, TCOL is not able to do the job. There are a number of reasons for that, but TCOL is just not able to do the job of oversight that they need to do. Another one of the issues that you have is qualified immunity. We need to get rid of qualified immunity for police officers. Again, getting back to a lawyer or a doctor or an engineer, those types of things, those different professional agents can be sued for malpractice or misconduct. When it comes to police officers, they have qualified immunity, and we need to be fixing that as well. But like I said before, if you give TCOL the enforcement mechanism, if you give TCOL the authority to go after this kind of conduct, TCOL's response is going to be, we don't have the funding for that. How are we going to be able to oversee the 80,000 police officers, the 80,000 law enforcement officers that are in the state of Texas? Well, what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to start charging a licensing fee, just like we do for cosmetologists. They have to pay a licensing fee. Plumbers, they have to pay a licensing fee. Lawyers, doctors, a number of different professions have to pay a licensing fee and pay a periodic maintenance fee to maintain that license. And I think that's what we're going to need to do when it comes to law enforcement officers as well, is charge a licensing fee. The licensing fee then goes to the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement to fund their services so that then they can go and they can properly govern our law enforcement officers. I think if we do that, I think we'll go a long ways towards the same types of activities that this person was getting at with the question of independent review boards. My problem with independent review boards is they're often local boards, and those local boards tend to look the other way maybe to local conduct, and I would much prefer some type of a statewide board where you have outside people that are looking and holding officers accountable and having some oversight when it comes to police officers. All right, and our next question is, what are your thoughts on reallocation of funds away from police and into more social services? I'm absolutely for that. I think that we're asking our police officers to do too much, frankly. I think that we need to have police officers that are on the streets, engaged in the task of fighting crime and arresting criminals and taking care of that. I don't think that police officers need to be in the business of engaged in social services, marital counseling, dealing with our homeless population, having to deal with rogue pets, or even when it comes to things like traffic enforcement and those kinds of things. I think we could have a separate branch of police services that deal with nothing but traffic issues. That is a very specialized area of law enforcement, just like homicide investigations are a very specialized area of law enforcement, or financial crimes are a very specialized area of law enforcement. All these things are specialized, but when it comes to those things that are, I guess what we would say, not exposed to a high risk of danger, and I say that, and our law enforcement agents that are out there pulling people over for traffic stops, of course, that does have a degree of danger there. But I'm talking about after a wreck has occurred and going out and measuring things and developing diagrams of the scene and that type of stuff. There are a number of things that our police officers do that I think we could have other types of professions do, and they would do the same quality job that our police officers do, and we could, by doing that, we could free up our officers to be more involved in the job of crime fighting and keeping us safe. One of the things that we need to keep in mind, and this is just where I'm coming from, or one of the things that I believe in, is I think that we have had an entire culture with our boomers who have been very, very safety conscious and very, very safety focused. But one of the things when it comes to that is there's this appeal to what we call the reptilian brain. There's this appeal to safety. There's this appeal to look out for danger. And I think that our politicians in the past, I think there's been certain politicians who have appealed to that and in such a way so as to get more votes. And whether that's at the city level or the state level or the national level. At the national level, it's all about building up our defense budget to fight non-existent threats abroad. At the state level, it's all about going and spending state funds to fight immigration, which is really a federal issue, but spending state funds to fight undocumented immigrants, when that's a federal issue, and we should be spending, or we should let the federal budget take care of that. And even locally, it comes with local city budgets, constantly wanting to raise our police budget, constantly upping that budget when we can spend that money in better ways, frankly. And so I think we need to get away from these constant appeals to safety and these constant appeals to that reptilian brain that's warning us that there's danger. I think that our politicians need to be smart, need to be wise, and need to be saying, look, we're going to spend the money wisely, but we're not going to go and make these appeals to people to try and drum up votes. And let's be honest, part of that as well appeals to racism and other things that we should just get away from as a society. And so, as I said, whenever I started out talking about young people, I think that we're having that whole younger generation that's coming along, and that younger generation doesn't respond to those kinds of appeals, not, which isn't to say that all baby boomers do, but it's just kind of the way things have been with certain news agencies and whatnot, Fox News and that sort of thing. But I think our younger generation's coming along, and they are wanting a different kind of society, and that's the kind of thing that gives me hope and makes me feel good about our future and where we're going as a country and where we're going as a state. And so I look forward to serving in Austin and serving with what I'm sure will be a new crop of young legislators and young people that will be leading us forward. So those are the questions that we had. Thank y'all. We're doing these every Sunday night. Feel free to go to our website, www.electjohngibson.com. You can see up at the top, there's a donate button. Running for office is something that is expensive. That's just the way it is in our country. Our elections are funded by the people, and so we would appreciate it if you go to the website. You can check out my policy positions on things. You can check out my background and my history. But then also, I'd ask that if you want to join us in what we're doing, then click that donate button and please donate to our campaign. Thank y'all. Stay safe. The numbers of COVID infections seem to be going down, but we want to keep that trend going down. So everybody stay safe and be careful out there, and we'll see y'all again next Sunday. Thank y'all.